Let's talk about how you're going to communicate in the best possible way while you're in the interview room. Now, in this video, we're not going to talk about how you answer interview questions specifically. We go into that in some of our other videos, and I certainly recommend that you watch those. But I want to talk to you about your behavior in the interview room and some of the small things that you can do that can make a big difference on whether or not you're going to be successful. Because you see, the content of your answer is important when you're in a job interview, but it's not as important as the way you deliver the answer. You've probably heard the saying that what you say is not as important as how you say it. And that's very much the case when it comes to interviewing. I like to use this quote from Maya Angelou. She said, "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." So I would really encourage you to take that quote on board. How are you going to make the interviewer feel? When you leave the room and you walk out of there, what's the interviewer going to think of the experience? Are they going to think, "Oh, I really liked meeting that person. They were friendly. We got along well. Things were quite easy." Or are they going to think of you as perhaps a bit grumbly, a bit defensive, hard to get information out of, hard to communicate with? Because quite quickly after the interview, the content of what you said is going to be forgotten, and how you delivered it is what is going to be remembered. So let me share with you some tips, 11 tips from an article, and you'll be able to find this link to this article within your Candidate Coach resources that are great for making people feel more comfortable around you. And every single one of these tips are super relevant to a job interview, whether they are face-to-face, in person, or whether they're via Zoom. So the first one is getting your smile on. Everybody likes it when the other person smiles at them. You're probably smiling back at me as you watch this at the moment. When someone smiles at you, you tend to smile back, and it makes you and them feel good. So when you come out of that elevator and you meet the person for the first time, a firm handshake, you look them in the eye and you say, "Thanks for seeing me today," and you smile at them. Wherever you can throughout the rest of the interview, try your best to smile as well. You want to come across as friendly and approachable. Because remember, this person might be looking at you thinking, "Hey, this person I'm interviewing is going to be sitting right next to me for however long they're in the job if they're successful. Do I want to work with this person? Do I want to work with you?" We want to show them that you're friendly, that you're comfortable to be around, and smiling and being happy is a great way to get things started. So let's get our smile on. Number 2, give off a confident vibe. Let's be confident. So we don't want to be cocky. We don't want to be arrogant, but we want to be confident. We want to sit with our shoulders back, our head held high. We're looking the person in the eye, or we're looking down the barrel of the camera there. See, one of the most important things with the video interview, and we've got another coaching video on that, is that many people act like they're not in front of a person. They might be slouched, or they might not look around. So imagine if we were speaking at the moment and my eyes are darting around the screen. You can see it. But imagine if I'm sitting up now, my shoulders are back, my hands are together in front of me, and I'm looking down the barrel of the camera. That's what we want to do. I look a lot more confident when I'm speaking to you like this. So you need to give off a confident vibe. And giving off a confident vibe suggests that you know what you're talking about as well, which is what we want in a job interview. Tip number 3 is dish out the compliments. So say something nice to the recruiter. "Oh, that's a lovely jacket that you're wearing today. Where did you get that from?" Or even better still, mention something that you learned about them. Say, "Hey, I was on LinkedIn and I saw your profile. You've been promoted 3 times since you've been here. Congratulations. What do you like working here? Why do you like working here so much?" Saying a compliment to somebody else cannot do anything other than make them think, "Oh, wow, okay, this person's done some research. And you know what? I like getting a compliment. They have noticed that I've been promoted 3 times." They'll start very quickly to be impressed with your level of research, but also a little bit of flattery can go a long way.
The minimum a candidate should do before their interview is research the company, have a look at the role, jump on LinkedIn. I don't know about you, but when I send interview confirmations, I say "you will be meeting with," and I put their name. jump on LinkedIn, have a look at their background. Have they been with the company 10 years or 10 minutes? Get a bit of a feel for the people that you're meeting, because I think when it comes to the end and we say, do you have any questions for us? Having that kind of background, you can say, oh, you've been here 10 years, what's kept you here? Or you've only been here a month, why did you decide to join the company?
Slow your roll. So what we mean here is slowing things down, taking our time. You are not in a rush in the interview room to say everything that you need to know as quick as you can. And this is a mistake that a lot of candidates make. I want you to try, if possible, when you're in an interview situation, to remind yourself to slow down your rate of speaking. When you are nervous or when you are excited, and at a job interview, you're normally one of the two, if not both, you tend to speak a bit more quickly without realizing it. So just by reminding yourself, hey, slow things down. We've got some time here. I've received a lot of feedback from candidates that have been interviewed by my clients that, oh, look, they were too fast. They spoke too quickly. I've never received any feedback from a client saying the candidate was speaking too slowly. So you've got some time. You're in the interview room. Take a deep breath and let's put our best foot forward and not race through things. Let's slow things down. Have open body language. So in some ways, this talks a little bit about the giving off a confident vibe. But let me give you two examples. If you're interviewing somebody like this, sitting there with their arms crossed, what vibe does that give off straight away? Defensive. I'm all closed off. If I'm on the side, either way, I'm looking a little bit casual. I'm a little bit lazy. So we just want to sit up straight. We want to have nice, broad shoulders. We want our hands to either be open and down there or like that in front of us. We want to be directly facing the person that's speaking, and we want to be looking at them in the eye. Now, I know in some cultures, looking somebody in the eye is a sign of disrespect, but in Australian culture, looking somebody in the eye when they are talking is very respectful. If you don't look somebody in the eye in Australia, it can tend to mean that there's a lack of trust there. So if I'm speaking to a candidate and every time they start answering a question, they don't look at me in the eye, I feel like they're not being truthful with me. I can't help that I feel that way. It's the impression that it gives off. So have open body language. You're proud of being there. You've got nothing to hide, and look the person directly in the eye. Show that you're actually listening. This is a really good point. Often at interview, and sometimes in any conversation, people only listen for the opportunity to say something. They're just waiting for a break. Show that you're actually listening to to what the recruiter says. Perhaps if they ask you a question, by asking a follow-up question to theirs, or saying, can you tell me a bit more specifically what you mean about that? Or referring in the interview to something that they said later on. Or occasionally saying, hey, that's a great question. Now, there's lots of little things that you can do to show that you're actively listening. If you want to go a little bit more into this area, just Google, how do I improve my active listening skills? There's a couple of simple things that you can do. And again, when people are talking, they want to feel like they're being listened to. So if the interviewer doesn't feel like you're listening to them, they'll come out of the interview and that's what their comment will be. Candidate seemed good, but they didn't really listen to what I was saying. I prefer candidate A, B, and C over this particular one. Use the mirroring technique. So this one's a little bit, well, it's not more complicated, but again, Google mirroring technique. This is where you pick up on the communication style of the person that's communicating with you, and you basically mirror the way they speak, the way they act, and it often can really, leave a favorable impression on the person that you're meeting with. Make them feel at home. Here's something you've probably never thought about. Your recruiter might be nervous. You might be the first person that they've ever interviewed. You might be the first person they've interviewed this year or next year. They might have looked at your resume and actually felt intimidated by your skills. They might not feel comfortable themselves being an interviewer. So you are not the only person in the room that is likely feeling some degree of nerves. If you can create a comfortable environment, if you can help the recruiter to feel comfortable around you, feel more at home, it is only going to work in your favor. Well, the way they put it in this article is be your hilarious self. There's a saying that says the shortest distance between 2 points is laughter. I would really encourage you to have as we said, smiling is great. You're allowed to have a laugh at an interview. If you have a story that comes up that has a little bit of humor in it, there is nothing wrong with telling it. If you can have a laugh with your interviewer, I guarantee you that you are building rapport with them. And if they're laughing, they're enjoying it too. Let the honesty fly. This is a really big one here. A lot of candidates feel quite guarded at interview and feel that they cannot show any vulnerabilities. But I would really encourage you to be honest. And you can kind of preface it with the recruiter. If you feel that you would like to share something that maybe isn't a positive or maybe not cast you in the best light, just say to the interviewer, look, I'm going to share something with you. I'm going to be really honest here. I'd like to tell you about this. If the recruiter feels you're being completely honest and completely transparent, it is going to count massively in your favor. They're going to say, yes, I believed everything that candidate said. They seemed really trustworthy. You know what? They mentioned that in their previous role, they struggled with 2 or 3 things. I appreciate that they were really honest. That is going to help you.
Probably say the candidates that really wow me are the candidates that I remember after the interview, because I felt like I could get a really clear understanding of how they would fit in within the organisation. So it's a great way as a recruiter or a resourcing partner internally to leave an interview going, I really learned about this person. I know a bit about their life. I know a bit about their personal values. I know a bit about their decision making and judgment. I feel I know them as an individual, and they come with this whole toolkit of skills that's going to be really beneficial in the role. So a short answer, show your whole true self. Don't go in just showing a pocket of your experience. Give us everything, because culture fit is equally as important as skill.
Remember to be nice. This one is simple, but people so often forget about it. The easiest way to be nice is just simply at the start and the end of the interview saying thank you. Hey, thanks very much for meeting with me today. And then at the end of the interview, thanks very much for taking the time to interview me today. The role sounds really interesting. I look forward to hearing back from you. I'd really encourage you just to do that on closing, when you're shaking the hand, when you're smiling, when you're looking the person in the eye. Thanks very much for the time today. I really enjoyed the interview and I look forward to hearing more on next steps. So this is a really great list here of how we can make other people feel comfortable around us, but particularly in an interview setting, how we can make the interviewer feel comfortable around us too. So what else can we do to stand out in the interview room? Well, we can stand out in the interview room by impressing with our knowledge. We need to show our knowledge of the organization, because that is what many recruiters are wanting to see. So how do we actually show our knowledge? Well, we need to show the organization that we understand what they do. We understand what they stand for. We've done that through our research. We want to show them that we understand what their values and beliefs are as an organization. My favorite one is market knowledge. If you can talk to an organization about what's happening in their market, in their industry, you can ask them questions about, say, the economy, for example. If you're going for a role where the organization is impacted by the economy, that always stands out well. Showing that you have absorbed information from any recent media or any publications that the organization has made. So if you want bonus points here, it's not just looking at what they've got on their company website. It's Googling, it's finding some information about the organization. That isn't super easy to find. We can also impress by our knowledge of the position. So what you should really be able to demonstrate at interview, what I'd really encourage you to do, is to make sure that the interviewer understands that you know what doing a good job looks like for this role. You're not just going to come in and do the job. You're going to do the job really well. And the only way that the recruiter is going to know that is by you showing and giving them the impression that you know what doing a good job looks like. You want to make sure that you link your experience and education back to the position. So countless times I've received feedback that, hey, the candidate had great skills and experience, but they didn't really make that link with the job. So they seem great, the job seems great, but they didn't seem to make it match. We need to make it match. And also that you understand the impact that this position has on the organization. You view the position as really, really important. Thirdly, you will be impressing in the interview room by showing what you're actually going to bring to the team. What are you as a person, your whole self, going to bring to the organization? Because remember, you are a very likely potential colleague of the person interviewing you. So what are you going to be like to work with? What are your interests outside of work? What's your culture? What's your background? What do you like to do? Make them want to work with you. Make the recruiter think, hey, you know what? I'd really like to work with this person. They seem really interesting, and I think we're going to get along, particularly well here. So to stand out in the interview room by doing at least the first two of those things, you're going to need to do a lot of research. And I've asked you already with your cover letter, with your resume, before you make a phone call, and now in the interview room, to do a lot of research. And you're probably wondering why. So I want to share with you a LinkedIn post from a well-known Australian recruiter called Stefan Wielak. He's given me his permission to share this in the workshops, but you'll hear from him why doing research is particularly important. So let me read this out to you now. Credentials on your resume will get you that first interview, but it's not the key to your next position. Looking at the people we recently hired, or who will be joining us shortly, there is one thing they all have in common. They were uber prepared. They have dug deep into what we do and what we stand for. They impressed us with their understanding of our business and the problems we are trying to solve. Yet, not all of them were exactly what we were looking for. On the opposite side, I interviewed a candidate the other day who looked great on paper, but when I spoke with her, she had no idea what we were doing and said she'd only researched a company once she lands an on-site interview. Well, it's a Zoom interview these days. Though if you haven't spent any time researching our company, you're missing the mark. I understand doing research takes effort and you don't even know if it'll pay off. However, that's exactly what other applicants do to get the job. And they're the ones that you compete with right from the beginning of your application. I just want to highlight that last line one more time to you. However, that's exactly what other applicants do to get the job. And they're the ones that you compete with right from the beginning of your application. So if you're not doing research yourself, you are going to be beaten by a candidate who is doing more research than you. It is that simple. This preparation and this research that I've shown you throughout these 3 coaching videos for interviews so far, every single candidate can do regardless of skills or experience. And so if you're not doing it, someone else is doing it better than you. So a candidate who answers questions confidently at interview gives the interviewer a great sense that they are a top performer. And by doing the research and doing the preparation, you are going to feel confident yourself and you're going to be able to answer the questions in a way that you feel very happy and very confident with. And you will leave the interview having created a great impression.
Really wow me in an interview, it's someone that's done their research, whether that's about me or the company. I think it's important that the candidate knows they are going into an interview for a job at that company and understands the reasons why they're doing that. I understand candidates need a job, but if you've targeted this company, make that known to the interviewer and make them aware that you've specifically chosen this company to come to interview at, and it's somewhere that you really want to grow and you can see your career progressing in.